General Hospital spoilers for the week of June 23 to 27 state that Nina Reeves will persuade Willow Tate to calm down and avoid rushing into marriage with Drew Kane, but her daughter is unlikely to listen. Willow's upcoming meeting with Michael Corinthos at the Quartermaine house may reveal that her wedding to Drew is imminent. That announcement may convince Michael that keeping Willow away from the children is the proper decision. Nina, on the other hand, will seek assistance from an unexpected source later on, necessitating a fresh collaborative effort. According to GH teasers, Drew will get some insider information. Could Drew have been tipped off about Judge Eva Heron's bribe? If that's the case, Drew will undoubtedly suspect Michael or one of his other wealthy loved ones of corruption. Drew may not be aware that Jen Sidwell is to blame, but that revelation could come later. Meanwhile, Kai Taylor's decision to accept Drew's internship will make Trina Robinson even more apprehensive. Drew is presenting himself as a hero, but Trina sees the evil aspect below. Cody Bell will then receive additional instructions from Christina Corinthos Davis and make every effort to bring Ava Jerome closer as part of their plan. Will Cody have true feelings along the way? Across town, Jason Morgan will offer some eye-opening advice to Dante Falconeri. It appears that Jason will have a father-son conversation with Dante and provide him with a fresh perspective. Brooklyn Quartermaine will witness something she does not approve of. There's a significant chance Brooklyn may notice a bonding moment between Lulu Spencer and Gio, making her even more motivated to bring Lulu down. Marcy Rios is ready to make a special delivery and perhaps make a discovery, which could be related to Brooklyn's Britt Westbourne research request. Marco could have some major updates for Brooklyn soon. Carly Spencer will have an uncomfortable chat with Sonny Corinthos. Carly may be concerned about the potential of arrest now that acting District Attorney Justine Turner is working harder to bring him down. By the end of the week, everyone will have gathered for Daisy's baptism, but Sonny is about to be dealt a stunning surprise. Could Sonny be jailed or face another attack on his life as the event concludes? General Hospital spoilers suggest the excitement is about to pick up in Port Charles, so don't miss out. Josh Kelly's departure from General Hospital surprised many, especially the characters closest to Cody Bell. While Cody had always lingered on the outskirts of Port Charles, slipping in and out of drama with a peculiar blend of charm and unpredictability, his recent engagement with crucial players such as Mac, Sasha, and even Ava showed Cody's narrative was only just getting started. But behind the scenes, something had changed. As word circulated that Josh Kelly was out of contract, the mood in the writer's room changed. Stories were accelerated, alliances redirected, and looming questions demanded quick answers. Port Charles was set to endure another shakeup, and those closest to the ripples felt the vibrations immediately. Carly Spencer was one of the first to react, but not because of Cody himself. Her concern was for Sonny, notably how his recent paranoia and isolation were getting worse by the day. She had always known Sonny to work in perilous environments. He was more than just a mob boss. He was a protector, a leader, and despite his flaws, a deeply principled individual. But the man had been slipping. Sonny had begun to sink downward following the break with Michael, Nina's treachery, and his crumbling trust in those closest to him. Carly sensed a vacuum building around Sonny as Cody appeared to step further into the shadows, and potentially out of Port Charles entirely. One that left him dangerously exposed. She brought it up with Jason one afternoon at Metro Court. He sat across from her, nursing a coffee and maintaining his usual stone-cold composure, but Carly recognized the flash of fear in his eyes. "He's pushing everyone away," Carly explained, her voice tense. "And now Cody isn't even returning calls. Something is not right." Jason did not answer immediately. He was always cautious around Sonny, not just because of the risk but also because of his loyalty. Still, he couldn't refute what Carly said. He had observed it too. Sonny had stopped exchanging intelligence. He'd become more unstable, more suspicious. And now that Brick was working more independently and Dex was no longer on the inside, Sonny's circle was smaller than ever. Cody was useful, Jason finally admitted. He had access to people we didn't. Exactly, Carly replied. And Ava. She trailed off. Ava Jerome has been a wild card recently, more so than usual. Carly could never fully trust her, but she could always predict her motivations. But Ava recently made a sharp left turn. She found herself unexpectedly close to Sonny. And if Cody had been acting as a discreet go-between for Ava's business behind the scenes, his sudden departure posed more than a threat to the truth. It created a blind spot. Meanwhile, Nina Reeves found herself in a totally different situation. Her access to Wiley remained closely regulated, despite her continued isolation from Willow and Michael. Sunny, her former protector, was growing colder by the week. Nina's world was still contracting as a result of her SEC betrayal. That's when she was approached by an unexpected person, who offered her an unusual new type of alliance. It happened in the gallery. Nina had come to see Ava, but instead met Selena Wu. The meeting was brief but full of tension and interest. Selena had no incentive to associate with Nina, socially or professionally. But Selena had the ability to identify chances in disaster, and Nina, alone and bitter, was an ideal candidate for a new alliance. "You're not the first woman to be cut out by the Corinthos family," Selena stated quietly. "You will not be the last. The question is, what do you plan to do about it?" Nina did not respond right away. She wasn't sure if Selena was baiting her or offering an olive branch, but the thought stayed. Nina was not naive. She understood the concept of leverage. In Port Charles, being alone was considered a vulnerability. Aligning herself with someone like Selena Wu may have once seemed impossible. What about now? It now felt like a road forward. Initially ignorant of the talk, Ava noticed minor changes in Nina's manner. The woman who had previously appealed for grace was now calculating, measured, focused. Ava disliked it not because she feared Nina, but because she was all too familiar with the effects of change. It was the expression of someone prepared to make a move. But Ava had her own issues to deal with, particularly Cody's departure, and the odd instructions he left behind. It was not a direct goodbye. Cody had always been the sort to disappear softly, but this time he left behind something more disturbing. A note. No message, no phone contact, just a box delivered to Ava's gallery. Inside there was a flash drive, gloves, and a scrawled statement that chilled her. "Keep your hands clean." But not so clean. Ava had no idea what it meant at first, but when she connected the flash drive into her laptop, her uncertainty turned to concern. It featured hazy, silent, yet damning surveillance footage. Sunny meets with a well-known guns dealer in Pozzolo's secluded backroom. Cody had certainly been filming things behind the scenes, and not just recently. The timestamps indicated that he had been collecting information for months. Ava watched the footage silently, a pit rising in her gut. Was Cody trying to protect Sunny? Or expose him? And why give her the footage? She called Spinelli and requested that he analyze the metadata. He confirmed that the footage was uncut, and that the meeting Sunny had attended could easily be linked to a shipment that had lately vanished from the docks. If the footage became public, Sunny's empire would suffer a direct hit. The feds would have cause. Enemies would pounce. Ava pondered removing the drive. But part of her knew Cody had given it to her for a reason, either as insurance or a test. Regardless, she now held a piece of Sunny's destiny in her hands. Jason too became increasingly wary of Ava. She was popping up more frequently, drifting into Sunny's orbit like smoke. But her reasons were unclear. When Jason confronted her on the dock, she pretended ignorance. She claimed she was only concerned about Sunny's mental state. But Jason saw beyond the performance. He always did. "You don't do anything unless it benefits you," he declared simply. "So what do you get out of this?" Ava smirked, that familiar mischievous sparkle in her eyes. "Sometimes, Jason, I just enjoy being close to power, even while it is crumbling." But even Ava had no influence over what would happen next. Selena Wu, encouraged by her quiet conversations with Nina, decided to move her pieces forward. She started making inroads on Sunny's domain, albeit discreetly at first. Package was intercepted here. A warehouse permission was delayed there. Nothing overt. Nothing that could be tracked. But it was sufficient to convey a message. When Sunny eventually approached Selena, she did not flinch. "Control is not taken all at once," she remarked calmly. "It's taken piece by piece, until the other person no longer notices they've lost it." Sunny, outraged, began to double his security. Unfortunately, it was too late. The fissures were forming. His attackers were no longer simply outside the gates. They had already entered. Carly, unwilling to watch him implode, contacted Michael. She didn't want to drag him back into Sunny's world, but things were deteriorating. When Michael discovered about Cody's tape and Ava's involvement, his first thought was to go to Willow, but she advised prudence. The last time Michael took action against Sunny, it cost them both more than they could afford. Instead, Michael sought out to Dex. Dex still worried about the balance of power in Port Charles, despite the fact that he was no longer employed by Sunny. If Selena Wu made a serious move, the city would devolve into mayhem. Dex approached Ava first, asking for the flash drive. She initially refused but later relented. "Just don't pretend like you're doing this for Sunny," she advised. "You are doing this for yourself. Like all of us." Dex turned over the footage to Jason, who ensured it was permanently deleted. Jason began to gradually circle back to former allies like Brick, Diane, and even Drew. They needed to create a barrier because Sunny, who was more alone, was no longer making sensible decisions. Meanwhile, Cody's whereabouts were unclear. The WSB claimed no participation. Mac, heartbroken and furious, searched every resource he had, but there was no evidence of his son. Sasha chose not to panic, despite her grief over the sudden absence of someone on whom she had grown to rely. Cody once stated that if he disappeared, it would be for a reason, and not necessarily a terrible one. Others, however, were less certain. Rumors circulated that Cody had turned going undercover for a rival organization or worse, the feds. Others speculated that he was playing a longer game, plotting a third-party power move to depose both Sunny and Selena. Nobody knew for sure. All that left was silence and that final message to Ava. Ava, for her part, kept her secret. She didn't tell anyone that the flash drive had a duplicate, which she had encrypted and put in a safe deposit box. Insurance, she told herself. There's nothing more. But deep down she knew the truth. In Port Charles, few people could afford to trust others. Secrets weren't buried, they were sold. As Josh Kelly's departure from the show reverberated throughout the stories, the writers leaned into the mayhem. Cody's disappearance became less about him and more about the mystery he left behind. And while the remaining characters scrambled to cope, they formed unexpected partnerships. Nina and Selena continued to meet privately. Carly and Jason grew closer again, driven by the need to keep Sunny safe from himself. Ava skated on the knife's edge of power and peril, unsure which side she'd inevitably take. And Sunny, once the monarch of his dominion, now faced a gradual loss of authority. The setting was set for something significant. And Cody Bell, whether returning as friend or foe, had tipped the first domino. General Hospital just published a preview video for the week of June 23rd to 27th, and viewers should ready themselves for some huge moments. The teaser begins with Jen Sidwell scrolling through various images. The first photo is of Giovanni Gio Palmieri, and the second is of Christina Corinthos Davis, though Jens has a stack of photos in his hands, so he's probably got pics of everyone close to Sunny Corinthos. With that said, the voiceover as Sidwell is browsing through pictures is Sunny himself, telling someone unknown, "Violence is on its way to Port Charles and we must stop it." The next segment of the GH preview commercial shows Drew Kane standing in front of a podium. This is the news conference that was discussed during the week of June 16th to 20th, and Tracy Quartermain appears to be about to give Drew back the Quartermain name and apologize. Or is she? Drew tells the journalist that his Aunt Tracy has something to say. As she reaches the podium, she pauses and Tracy's voiceover can be heard saying, "I have to tell you the truth." The camera moves to surprised expressions on the faces of people at the press conference, including Martin Gray, Kai Taylor, and Brooklyn Quartermain Chase, who says, "Oh no," with her husband Harrison Chase appearing very uncomfortable next to her. Will Tracy reveal Drew's affair with Nina Reeves this week? Will she admit that Drew is blackmailing her? It looks like it. Meanwhile, the final clip from the GH preview features Willow Tate and Michael Corinthos. They appear to be in the Quartermain Gatehouse, the family's former home, and it appears that Willow will inform Michael about her wedding arrangements to Drew. The scenario depicts Willow and Michael face to face, with Michael angrily telling his ex-wife, "If you marry Drew, I will make sure you never see our kids again." According to General Hospital teasers, Willow may not be able to marry Drew if his affair with Nina becomes public. Will Willow's mental health deteriorate if she discovers the truth about Drew and Nina, and loses the only two people she has left in her life? When word spread that Sidwell Financial was stealthily acquiring buildings and interests throughout Port Charles, most residents disregarded it as yet another faceless corporate operation. After all, famous names came and went through the city, some making brief ripples before departing just as quickly. But Tracy Quartermain wasn't one to disregard power moves, especially when they threatened to shift the balance of power in a community where business and bloodlines were inextricably linked. She noticed the signals early on, long before anyone else did. She remembered the name Sidwell from an old partner with whom her father had previously fought in court, although the stakes were solely financial. Now things felt different. More personal. More targeted. Tracy attempted to voice concerns during an ELQ board meeting, but she was dismissed as too vague and speculative. Even Ned, now back to himself after the Eddie Main detour, advised her to leave it go unless she had proof. Tracy didn't need proof to believe her instincts were correct, so she took things into her own hands. Over the next few weeks, she delved deep into bank transfers, shell businesses, real estate loopholes, and tax arrangements. And every trail pointed to one inescapable conclusion. Someone at Sidwell wasn't simply expanding. They were hunting. The prey was Sonny Corinthos' family. The Corinthian name had weight, both good and bad. Some saw Sonny as a protector, a necessary evil, and a keeper of order in a chaotic world. Others saw him as a criminal, plain and simple. But, love him or hate him, Sonny had made himself untouchable in Port Charles, or so he thought. Sidwell wasn't approaching him through the front entrance. They weren't deploying troops or stirring up the five families. Instead, they attacked from within, targeting Sonny's genuine interests, allies, and family safety nets. The first hit came quietly. A hostile takeover effort on a warehouse held by Sonny through one of his legal shipping companies. It was almost too late for his legal staff to catch on to the maneuver. The property had already been reallocated to a new shell corporation registered overseas. When Diane looked into it, the documents pointed to an investment group run by Sidwell Financial. Sonny's eyes clouded when Diane told him. He did not speak for a long time, and when he did, his voice was quiet but chilly. Somebody's playing a very dangerous game. Jason Morgan, who had just recently re-established his presence in Port Charles, stepped up right away. He began compiling a list of homes, investments, and businesses in which Sonny or any of his family members have a part. Within a few days, they discovered other red flags. Michael's position in Aurora Media had been surreptitiously pursued by unidentified investors seeking to influence board votes. Unauthorized access attempts had been made to Jocelyn's college fund account. CARLY'S Metro Court was investigated by the IRS following an anonymous whistleblower allegation. Worse, the bank had identified Donna and Avery's trust accounts for suspicious transfers, which were mercifully prevented before any money could travel. It was organized. It was careful. It was escalating. Sonny recognized a message when he saw it. This was not about money. It was about pressure. Leverage. Whoever was behind it didn't just want to injure him. They wanted to destroy everything he had achieved and turn the people he cared about into collateral damage. He resumed working nights, reconnecting with old relationships and reactivating silent allies he hadn't phoned in years. Brick arrived from out of town, installing digital firewalls and investigating any cyber footprints left behind. Even he was disturbed by what he discovered. The attacks had been methodically routed via numerous jurisdictions. Some of the servers had been rented months in advance, indicating a long-term plan. Someone has been planning for this for a long time. Then came Tracy's news conference. She hadn't told anyone she was planning to do it, not Ned, Brooklyn, or Monica. She scheduled it through ELQ's public relations firm, making it appear like a regular quarterly update. But when the reporters arrived at the Q Mansion's West Wing, expecting figures and strategy, they were taken aback. Tracy strode up to the stage, looked directly at the cameras, and dropped the bombshell. Sidwell Financial is running a calculated, well-funded campaign to damage Port Charles's economic infrastructure. They have targeted privately held enterprises, family assets, and even children's trust funds. These aren't random acquisitions or competitive business plans. They're attacks. And I believe the ultimate purpose is to dismantle the Corinthos family. The room exploded. Reporters screamed questions. Within minutes, online headlines began to appear. Tracy kept her stand, exposing papers, redacted emails, and internal memoranda obtained from an unnamed source within Sidwell. The evidence was not conclusive, but it was convincing. Enough to cause alarm, create suspicions, and most crucially put Sidwell under the microscope. Sonny viewed the news presentation from his apartment. Tracy shivered as he pronounced his family name aloud. He despised that it had come to this, public, open, and messy. But a part of him admired Tracy's decision. She was unpredictable and merciless in her own way. And if she had waged war on Sidwell, he knew she'd be unstoppable. Michael, on the other hand, was infuriated. Not at Tracy but at himself. He'd believed he could protect his family from such a menace. His efforts to run legal businesses and remove himself from Sonny's darker world had all resulted in fractures in their armor. And now his mother, sisters, and son were all targets. He rushed straight to Drew, demanding an explanation for who had admitted Sidwell's spies into Aurora. Drew appeared taken aback, but he agreed to investigate. However, Michael no longer believed in promises. He began making calls himself, bringing in third-party analysts, tech professionals, and even speaking with Spinelli behind the scenes. He wasn't going to let anyone manipulate his life again. Not after what he'd been through with Willow's illness, Nina's treachery, and the never-ending family instability. Meanwhile, Carly confronted Tracy. "You could have come to me," Carly exclaimed, storming into the Quartermain mansion the day after the press conference. "We could have coordinated, kept it quieter, maybe even done some damage control." Tracy didn't apologize. "Carly, we don't do quiet anymore. That's what led us into this mess. Pretending that if we remain silent, the wolves would pass us by. They aren't passing. They are circling." Carly could not argue with that. She despised being in the spotlight during this type of fight, but she saw Tracy's point. Worse, the press conference had already triggered consequences. Local banks were intensifying their examination of Corinthos linked accounts. Media outlets were looking into previous lawsuits. The city council was quietly evaluating permits and licenses. And Sidwell? They replied with eerie silence. Not a single public statement. No denials. No lawyers are threatening litigation. Just silence, the kind of silence that made everyone anxious. Back at Sonny's warehouse, Jason and Brick finally discovered their name. Not Sidwell itself, but a senior member of its acquisitions branch named Dorian Blake. He had been secretly promoted 6 months prior and previously worked for a private security group known for its economic warfare tactics. Essentially, corporate sabotage. Blake had no known ties to Port Charles, but he did have a daughter who died of an overdose 5 years prior. Is the dealer responsible? A man tethered to one of Sonny's weaker workers was long gone, but the harm remained. Jason handed the file to Sonny, who looked at the photo of Blake for a long time before putting it down. "So this is personal," Sonny explained softly. "Looks like it," Jason said. Sonny did not flinch. "Then we'll make it personal." But Sonny did not send anyone after Blake. Not yet. Instead, he convened a meeting of the 5 families, a rare full-table event. When the heads came, each with their own security detail, they anticipated some internal upheaval, possibly a turf conflict. Instead, Sonny explained what was going on: the attacks, the strategy, and the aim. "This isn't just about me," Sonny explained. "It begins with my family. But if they succeed, they will come after all of us. Anyone with power, history, or influence in this community, you're next." Some scoffed. Others listened. One ambitious younger boss from the West Side accused Sonny of fabricating evidence in order to restore authority. Sonny only grinned coldly. "Do you think I want this?" he stated. "Do you think I want my children targeted? You think I want Diane to follow paper trails while Donna's bank account is hacked? I do not care what you believe. But you'll believe it when they arrive for your family." By the end of the night, the room had split. Half of the table committed to keep track of their assets and report any questionable activity. The other half remained skeptical, unwilling to support Sonny without more evidence. But Sonny didn't need their allegiance. He needed time. And the time was running out. Because while Sonny and Jason were attempting to prevent Sidwell's efforts, Blake was planning something greater. Something public. Something that would cut to the heart of Sonny's legacy. Blake had organized a shareholder meeting in upstate New York, bringing together significant players who had inadvertently financed Sidwell's darker acquisitions. The agenda included a thorough exposé, material that, if revealed, would implicate Sunny's firms in everything from smuggling to offshore laundering. Some of this was overstated. Not all of it was. But perception was everything. If Blake succeeds, Sunny will not only lose control of his assets, he would lose the city. Back in Port Charles, Sasha overheard a conversation in the Metro Court bar. A man in a suit brags excessively about attending the big meeting, referencing Dorian Blake's name and how the Kingpin's empire's about to go up in smoke. She quickly texted Michael, who delivered it to Sunny. Within an hour, Jason was on the road with Dex Heller, driving north through the night. The meeting never occurred. Nobody knew exactly what stopped it. According to reports, a fire alarm sounded, prompting the building's evacuation. Others mentioned a gas leak. However, those who attended never received the promised exposé, and Blake did not return. Back in Port Charles, Sunny sat in his office, sipping whiskey and looking at a photo of his children. He was not celebrating. The threat was not gone. It was sleeping, wounded, enraged, and more dangerous than ever. Tracy paid him a visit the next morning. She didn't speak much. I just handed him a folder containing a list of Sidwell's remaining interests in Port Charles. We bleed them slow, she explained. Sunny nodded. Until they regret ever looking this way. So the war did not finish. It went underground. But the message was clear. Port Charles was not as susceptible as Sidwell had imagined. When families like the Quartermaines and the Corinthoses banded together, their adversaries discovered the power of history and blood firsthand. According to General Hospital previews, Daisy will be the center of attention as everyone prepares for her christening. It will be a day filled with love and joy, but things may take an unexpected turn at the gathering. On June 27th, Sunny Corinthos will face a surprise. Sunny is about to face a surprise that he will not be expecting. Daisy's big day may be ruined because this is taking place on the same air date as the christening. Daisy's baptism could end in disaster if Sunny's surprise occurs when he is enjoying his new granddaughter. Some sensible alternatives instantly come to mind. It is possible that Sunny will be jailed because acting DeJustine Turner is still working to lock him up. We could well envision Sunny being dragged away in handcuffs at this event. If there is enough proof to drag Sunny away by then, Turner will make sure it occurs as soon as possible, even if it means disrupting a baby's christening. We know Anna Devane will be grilled on June 27th, so Carly Spencer and Jason Morgan may demand answers once Sunny is locked away. Of course, there are other devastating scenarios for Sunny's impending stunner. After all, the person responsible for the penthouse explosion and the hit in Los Angeles is still out there, intent on Sunny's demise. Sunny is still alive despite numerous attempts to kill him, but someone may decide that third time is the charm. It's possible that there will be another attempt on Sunny's life on Daisy's baptism day, so that's something to consider. Some shocking news will undoubtedly disrupt Sunny's plot. Sunny should be spooked by whatever the GH writers have in store for him next, so stay tuned for more updates on the pandemonium. The morning of Daisy's baptism dawned with a golden color blanketing Port Charles. The air smelt like summer, fresh, pleasant, and full of hope, and it seemed as if nothing could go wrong. Everyone had waited until this day. Sasha had put her heart into every detail. This was more than simply a ceremony. It represented a new beginning. Daisy saw it as a welcome into the world, into faith, and into a family that had nearly split apart before she took her first breath. For Sasha, it was proof that she had survived. It was a day to wash away the anguish and create something lovely. The chapel had been decked with gentle pastels and white roses. The Corinthos family had banded together to help Sasha in every way possible. Carly was in charge of the reception setup. Olivia arranged catering through Metro Court, and Brooke Lynn even offered to perform a hymn. Nina, who had been treading on eggshells with everyone since the truth about her past manipulations was revealed, kept her distance but sent Daisy a gift. A handmade silver rattle inscribed with her name. Sasha hadn't determined how to react to it. The gesture was sweet, but her feelings for Nina remained twisted. Curtis and Portia arrived early and offered to assist seat the guests. Maxie handled the photographer, while Spinelli made sure no journalists got in, especially after Sasha's recent ordeal with her son Liam's unexpected return. Port Charles had finally ceased gossiping about the nightmare, but Sasha's name lingered in the town's talks like a ghost.